We know MLK, we know Malcolm X, we know Rosa Parks, and we know the iconic Shirley Chisholm. But who are some of the unsung Black heroes that we know nothing about? Well, join me this Black History Month as we walk through 28 days learning about 28 who should be iconic but are unsung Black heroes. Hey friends, it's me, QuentinRJiles, the host of the Q with Q, and welcome to another episode of Unsung Black Heroes. Every day this month, I'm going to introduce heroes who have influenced not only the African American community, but the world at large. Today, we will be focusing on a woman named Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler. Dr. Crumpler was the first African American woman to receive an MD degree, medical doctor here. Dr. Crumpler was born in Delaware on February 8, 1831. Though her parents did not have a background in health, some believe that her aunt, who was known for helping her sick neighbors, influenced Dr. Crumpler to work in the medical field. As a child, Dr. Crumpler attended a West Newton English and Classical school located in Massachusetts. In 1852, she moved to Charlestown, Massachusetts, and began to work as a nurse. Dr. Crumpler started the work before she had any formal training, as the official school of nursing would not be opened until 1873. Now, when we fast forward to 1860, Dr. Crumpler would be admitted to New England Female Medical College. Here she would spend 4 years before graduating in 1864. And at the time of her graduation, Dr. Crumpler got married for a second time to Arthur Crumpler. Her first marriage in 1852 was to a man named Wyatt Lee, which ended in 1863. At this time, Dr. Crumpler was the first Black woman to hold a medical degree. She was also the only Black woman to graduate from this institution, as it ended up closing in 1873. Many men opposed the New England Female Medical College, believing that women did not have the physical strength, the capacity of understanding the information, and were too sensitive and delicate to learn about the topics they would be studying. I guess those women showed those men. In 1883, Dr. Crumpler wrote and published her first book, Book of Medical Discourses. In this, she talks briefly about her personal journey that led her on her career. Quote, "It may be well to state here that having been reared by a kind aunt in Pennsylvania, whose youthfulness with the sick was continually sought, I early conceived a liking for and sought every opportunity to relieve the suffering of others. Later in life, I devoted my time, when best I could, to nursing as a business, serving under different doctors for a period of 8 years, from 1852 to 1860. Most of my time at my adopted home in Charleston, Middlesex County, Massachusetts. From these doctors, I received letters commending me to the faculty of the New England Female Medical College, whence 4 years after, I received the degree of Doctoress of Medicine." End quote. After receiving her degree, Dr. Crumpler moved to Boston to practice medicine, then made her way on to Richmond, Virginia, when the Civil War came to an end in 1865. While residing in Richmond, she found, quote, "the proper field for real missionary work, and one that will present ample opportunities to become acquainted with diseases of women and children." At this time, Dr. Crumpler worked for General Orlando Brown, who was the Assistant Commissioner of the Freedmen's Bureau of Virginia. This bureau was a federal agency that was tasked with helping over 4 million enslaved African Americans make the transition from being enslaved to being free individuals. During her time practicing in Richmond, Dr. Crumpler was consistently berated by people who spewed racist, sexist, and rude behavior. These people included her colleagues, everyday people who came in contact with her, and pharmacists. A time to be alive, huh? Dr. Crumpler and her husband returned to Boston and moved to a community that was mainly made up of African American people. Here she would continue to practice medicine. In 1880, Dr. Crumpler and her husband packed up and moved to Hyde Park, New York. During this time, not much is known of how she practiced medicine, but this is where she would write her book of Medical Discourses. Unfortunately, I couldn't find pictures of Dr. Crumpler. Information about her past is gathered from short segments she wrote about her life. Book of Medical Discourse is one of the very first medical books that was published by an African American. The book is divided. as the title implies, into two sections. The first part focuses on treating the cause, prevention, and cure of infantile bowel complaints from birth to the close of the teething period, or after the 5th year. The second section contains miscellaneous information concerning the life and growth of beings, the beginning of womanhood, also the cause, prevention, and cure of many of the most distressing complaints of women and youth of both sexes. The volume, which may well be the first medical textbook by an African American author, is dedicated to mothers, nurses, and all those who may desire to mitigate the afflictions of the human race. Historians question whether or not Dr. Crumpler knew she was the first Black woman doctor due to the fact that the majority of the 20th century, many thought that Dr. Rebecca Cole was the first Black woman doctor. Dr. Cole would receive her medical degree in 1867 from the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania. It would not be until 1868 that the first historically Black medical college would open, Howard University College of Medicine. It is important to note that even in 1920, there were only 65 doctors who were Black women in all of the United States. On March 9th, 1865, Dr. Crumpler passed away in Hyde Park. She has been remembered by her legacy to, quote, mitigate the affliction of the human race. So my question for you, what are you doing, or what will you plan to do to mitigate the affliction of the human race in your own capacity? And stay tuned for more Unsung Heroes. Give this video a thumbs up if you learned something, subscribe for more, and hit the bell notification to be the first in the queue. Ample opportunities to become acquainted with. What? While residing in Richmond, she found that the proper field acquainted with the diseases of women and children. Okay, we can strike that. And Dr. Crumpler and her husband about her life. She found the proper field for real missionary work. Okay. Then for a time to practice, moved to Boston. For a time to practice. Uh-oh. While residing in Richmond, okay. From short segments she wrote about her life in her book. Her book.